What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I am talking about probably one of the most anticipated releases of the year for quite a number of reasons, not only because of the band, but everything that's happened in the 4 years it's been since we've had an album from this band. We are talking about the latest offering from the Black Dahlia Murder, Servitude. This comes out on September 27th on Metal Blade Records, and this is the band's 10th studio full-length. And I will confess, I haven't gotten into 100% of Black Dahlia Murder's entire history. Like, I've heard a couple of albums in the past and a lot of songs. I have all the albums. I just haven't gotten around to doing a full digestive listen to everything, but that will probably change in the near future because we are talking about a new album and I plan on getting it not only for the collection, but I will say this is some pretty cool stuff going on right here. Now, of course, the big thing is this is their first album in 4 years, and this is the first one after the sad death of original and founding frontman Trevor Strnad, which, God, he's still sorely missed. We miss him still to this day. But Brian Eschbach, the other co-founder of the band, who was originally the rhythm guitarist and backing vocalist, stepped up to take over on lead vocals after Trevor's death. And as far as, like, other than that, the other big lineup change, because Brian stepped down from playing guitar and focusing primarily on vocals, Ryan Knight returned to the band back in 2022, and now we have a dynamic guitar duo between he and Brandon Ellis, who joined back around before Nightbringers came out. So, what did Black Dahlia have in store for us after what happened with Trevor, and what's the first album like with two killer guitarists and a killer guitarist taking over on vocals? Well, we kick things off with Evening Ephemeral. I don't know how to fucking pronounce this word. Evening whatever. I'm just gonna say evening whatever. But it starts off with almost like Middle Eastern acoustics, which was something I'd never heard Black Dahlia do before. Maybe I missed something. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's some more Middle Eastern acoustic work, and then it just punches you with sinister, nasty riff savagery. And of course, whenever you have two killer guitarists like Brandon Ellis and Ryan Knight, you got some really cool creative riff changes, not only on this track, but across the board on the entire album. And of course, before I continue talking about the songs, to production done by, for the most part, by Mark Lewis, who does a great job with many albums. He really helped the band shine in terms of production on here, and also especially in the mix. The bass work that I hear on this opening track, some of the best bass work I've ever heard on a Black Dahlia album that I've listened to in the past. This, just, wow. The way that the bass shines on this track really kind of stood out in my head, like, holy crap, have they always been this technical? But as it goes along, it gets more thrashy. There's some, like, classic metal gallops, and definitely across the board, blast beats aplenty. But also, one thing that definitely stands out here are Brian's vocals. Like, Brian, I think, does a fantastic job on the vocals. With his more screaming vocals, they kind of remind me a little bit of Trevor's vocals from Unhallowed. Like, they were not as high, they were more like mid-range screams, which I really, really like those. In terms of his growl, kind of almost like Bill Steer, like they were more like mid-ranged growling, which was pretty cool. So it's like both sides to the vocals were more in the mid-range. Who knows, maybe on the next album he'll experiment a little bit more, go lower with his growls, maybe even higher on the screams. That remains to be seen, but right off the rip with this opening track, you get an idea of what these leads are going to be like. I will probably say, out of anything I've heard from Black Dahlia, in terms of the most dynamic lead work, I would argue this album has some of the best lead work ever, because you get all these like cool lead trade-offs between Brandon and Ryan, and also harmonies, which was not really something you heard in the past, because back then Brian was mainly the rhythm guitarist, and you had other lead players in the past like John Companion or Ryan Knight, and now Brandon Ellis, just shining on their own. Here, with Brandon and Ryan working in tandem, they can trade off of one another during the solos and harmonize together, very much in the vein of like Glenn Tipton and K.K. Downing, Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, just like any twin lead attack from any band in the past. And it certainly showcased that on this opening track, and really is peppered in all throughout the album. Like, all the songs contain some kind of harmony or lead trade-off, shred, what have you. But we spent enough time talking about the opening track. Moving on to Panic Hysteric. This was, not counting one track I'll talk about at the end, this was one of the shorter tracks of the album at a little over 3 minutes, and it's just very much like classic melodic death metal riffing and thrashy rhythms, but you do get some cool groove that pops up, plus some more like, I don't know if angular would be the right word, but like more intricate melodies coming in. And then the first single, Aftermath, which, if you don't count one song on the album, the shortest track of the album at 3 minutes almost exact. It's thrashy, but you get some like more heavier riffs, kind of like death thrash riffs a little bit. But again, blasts aplenty, harmonies aplenty, or harmonies, not harmonize, harmonies aplenty, and tribal grooves, which was pretty cool. Cursed Creator, this one of the more unique songs on the album because it's mostly double time. Like the opening groove, it's very much double time, but you get like more machine gun riffs. And then it turns rather technical, so this is almost a tech death song. Like the riffs sound more complicated, but it's on top of like this big double time stomp. There's even some atonal riffs that show up. A harmonized melody on top of like an almost doom groove. And then later on you get into the track Asserting Dominion. This one feels like the most death metal, like the most proper death metal oriented track on the album. Like nasty riffs that feel very much like classic death metal, like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide, and even some of the tremolos. Like there's only a couple of tremolo riffs that show up here. Sound a little bit like Morbid Angel at times, but still very thrashy. You do get some pretty cool triplet chugs. Probably the only time on the album I will say that there were triplet chugs was on Asserting Dominion. More sinister melodies, just to add more to the darkness. Then we get into the title track, Servitude, and this is another one of those more almost tech death songs because the riff arrangements on here feel more complex and technical, but it's still very thrashy and atonal. But this song kind of gave me nods to Obscura a little bit. Like it has a little bit more of that like technical flair, but it's not like wankery. It's just more about the complexity. But also I love the tribal fills on the drums that Alan Cassidy is laying down. So that was an added plus. Mammoth's Hand, which was the second single of the album, lead melodies right off the rip, and then you get some like atonal and, dare I say, dissonant melodies, and it's a little bit more on the groovy side, and the riffs are just downright evil, and it does go into double time, and dare I say the leads and the harmonies on this track felt more somber and sorrowful, if that makes any sense. Transcosmic Blueprint, English, motherfucker, do you speak it? Cosmic Melody starts us off, and then right back into technical riffage, but melodies on top of like a thrashy rhythm. One of the bigger choruses on the album, and it's got loads of dynamic with the melodies. It's groovy. And then you get into the closing track, Utopia Black, the longest track of the album at just under 4 minutes. This one, atonal, heavy riff to start. It's groovy. You also get some more like classic heavy metal inspired melodies popping up. Darker riff overtones as well as blast beats. It does get thrashy again. And even like the leads and the harmonies here felt like classic heavy metal. And then it ends on a rather almost like dark folk ending, which was pretty cool. And that's how we end this. So, like, in terms of, like, the length, this is just little under 33 minutes. Like, every song, for the most part, is, like, average to about 3.5 minutes. So it's very compact. It flows pretty nicely. However, as far as any complaints go, the track in intermission, which was like nearly 30 seconds, it was an acoustic interlude. It was a pretty acoustic interlude, but I felt like making that a separate track didn't feel right, and it does lead beautifully into Asserting Dominion. Honestly, I would have just opened Asserting Dominion with this acoustic part, and then it goes into these like classic death metal riffs, and I felt it would have helped the album out a little bit more in terms of shortening the track list, but also like adding an extra dynamic to an already killer song. And then I can't remember if it was Panic Hysteric or Aftermath. It just kind of ends abruptly. I would say those are the only complaints. It's like one of those two songs ended abruptly, and I wish that the acoustic interlude could have just been the intro to Asserting Dominion. But overall, top to bottom, I think Trevor would be proud of this album because this is still Black Dahlia Murder. This is still everything you want from Black Dahlia Murder, but with some nuance in terms of the guitar leads being more dynamic and with more trade-offs and harmonies. So we're now officially in the beginning of a new era for this band. I am going to give this 4.5 out of 5. I think this is a fantastic offering. I don't know if it's quite one of their best. I would say maybe top 5 if I were to rank Black Dahlia. At least as of right now, this would be a top 5 album. But it is fantastic. Like, not a bad song on here. Every song rips on here. It's still Black Dahlia to the core, but with those nuances within the shred department. But yeah, if you are a fan of Black Dahlia Murder, I think you guys are going to love this. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.
Thank you for your patronage.